When did you first approach Sue Gray to be your Chief of Staff?
Nick, I know her personally. I met her when I was Director of Public Prosecution. She was obviously a senior civil servant. I met a number of them. I was really, really impressed with her report.
Might I ask when you first approached her to be your Chief of Staff?
I've been on the lookout for a Chief of Staff for a little while now. I'm very clear what I wanted in that.
If it's not improper, why won't you say, it was a month ago, Nick, or it was 6 weeks ago, Nick, or it was on New Year's Day?
It was. I've been looking for some time, and there's nothing improper in the slightest.
One last try. Did you make contact with Sue Gray about joining you as Chief of Staff this year or last year?
Nick, it was recent. It was after I lost, or we moved on from my last Chief of Staff,
October.
and after I've also had a period of working through in my own mind what I wanted from a Chief of Staff.
But you're not going to tell me when?
Nick, that'll all be
All right.
later, but there's absolutely nothing improper about this whatsoever.
Sir Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will my right honourable friend, the Paymaster General, make a statement on the impartiality of the civil service in light of the proposed appointment of the second permanent secretary of the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities as Chief of Staff to the Leader of the Opposition?
I can confirm that following a media report the previous day, Sue Gray, formerly second permanent secretary at DLUC and at the Cabinet Office, resigned from the civil service on Thursday, the 2nd of March. This resignation was accepted with immediate effect. On Friday, the 3rd of March, a statement from the opposition announced that the Labour Party had offered Sue Gray the role of Chief of Staff to the Leader of the Opposition. It is unprecedented for a serving permanent secretary to resign to seek to take up a senior position working for the Leader of the Opposition. The Cabinet Office is looking into the circumstances leading up to Sue Gray's resignation. Subsequent to that, I will update the House appropriately. The business appointment rules form part of civil servants' contracts of employment. The rules state that approval must be obtained prior to a job offer being announced. The Cabinet Office has not, as yet, been informed that the relevant notification to ACOBA has been made. Finally, the Directory of Civil Service Guidance states the contact between senior civil servants and leading members of opposition parties should be cleared with ministers.
Mr. Speaker, to echo my right honourable friend's comments, many of us are indeed surprised and, frankly, deeply disappointed about the particular circumstances that have emerged. This is, as my right honourable friend has said, about an issue of fundamental trust that has to exist between impartial civil servants up to the highest level, and here we are dealing with a permanent secretary, Mr. Speaker, and the ministers whom they serve.
Shadow Leader of the Labour Party, Angela Rayner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd also like to thank members opposite for asking why a senior civil servant, famed for their integrity and dedication to public service, decided to join the party with a real plan for Britain, rather than, Mr. Speaker, a tired-out, washed-up, sleaze-addicted Tory government. A party so self-obsessed that they are using parliamentary time to indulge in the conspiracy theories of the former Prime Minister and his gang. What will they ask for next? A Westminster Hall debate on the moon landings, the bill of dredging the Loch Ness, or a public inquiry into whether the earth is flat? The biggest threat to the impartiality of the civil service is the party opposite and their decade of debasing and demeaning public standards in public life. And they talk about trust, Mr. Speaker. This debate says more about the delusions of the modern Conservative Party than it does about anything else. After this question, I'll go back to my office to help people struggling with the cost of living, getting an NHS dentist and paying their energy bills, all of which is a result of 13 years of this failed Conservative administration. While they play games, Mr Speaker, we're getting on with tackling the real issues facing the country. When will they do the same?
Well, Mr Speaker, having heard from the Right Honourable Lady, she's clearly been advised that attack is the best form of defence. I quite understand why they feel in need of some more advisers and some new advisers, given her tone today. I understand the dilemma faced by the Leader of the Opposition. Having looked inside his tent, I understand why he's reaching so far outside it. After so many rebrands, I appreciate why the Right Honourable Lady and the Leader of the Opposition require someone who can do joined up. But let me just say this. The party opposite talks about rules. They talk about transparency. They talk about standards in public life. Given all the constant talk, it's time they walked the walk. Why are they refusing to publish when they met with Sue Gray? Why? Why are they being evasive? Why can't they tell us what they discussed, where they met, how often they met? Their refusal to do so begs the question, exactly what is Labour trying to hide?
Now, can I say, Mr Speaker, on a personal note, I would consider this appointment to be somewhat ill-judged, and I think those who are of reasonable mind on all sides of this argument would accept that.
Is my right honourable friend aware as to whether or not a contract has been entered into between the parties concerned, written or unwritten? Because this important question raised by my right honourable friend raises not only questions of constitutional propriety, and not only questions of impartiality, but also matters relating to confidentiality.
Mr Speaker, now many people may say that Miss Gray is a splendid woman, and I understand she even fed the cats in the Cabinet Office. But does this not smash to pieces the idea of an independent civil service, when we know that one of the most senior civil servants in the country was conniving in secret meetings with the party of opposition? And does this not undervalue years of advice and reports that she has given? Her views on devolution, which were known constantly to be soft. Her report into the Right Honourable Member, the member for Uxbridge, which we now know was done by a friend of the Socialists. Does this not undermine all her previous work and the idea of an independent civil service?
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This is about impartiality and trust, and it saddens me to see the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party in such a senior position defending this in the way that she did. If the rules have not been followed and a lengthy period of time has not succumbed, i.e. 2 years, Sue Gray has had access to highly confidential and very personal information. She is in a very powerful position to use this not just with anyone, but with the opposition party and with the general election looming.
Jonathan Gunners.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Leader of the Opposition was best friends with the member for Islington North, and as soon as he lost the election, dumped him. He was pro a second referendum, lost the election, dumped it. Had 10 pledges to become Leader of the Opposition, dumped it. A rebrand after rebrand. This is a Labour Party with a grubby deal clearly going on behind the scenes here, Mr Speaker. The Leader of the Opposition talks about integrity, openness and honesty. So why can't he evaluate all those three things and tell us who, where, when and why?
I mean, is it not ironic that Sue Gray was the head of the Cabinet Office's proprietary and ethics team, and it is her who has put the civil service under a dark shadow, a shadow which need not have existed? And is it also not the case that this, therefore, was bad judgment by her, but also bad judgment by the Leader of the Opposition, who, when asked 10 times this morning to give more information as to when discussions began, 10 times he evaded?
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Now then, this latest grubby scandal from the Labour Party has cast a dark stain on democracy. So, does my right honourable friend agree with me that the Leader of the Opposition should come out of hiding, come clean and publish the details of the meetings?
And when you talk using the same divisive rhetoric, mostly men come from Albania, they don't stop in France. All of that is actually the gaslighting that Claire is referring to, because all you're doing is trying to feed the politically illiterate in this country, and you're making them feel... It's trying to feed the politically illiterate in this country, and you're making them feel... Which is not most people. Most people see through that divisive nonsense, and they call you out for it.
All right, hang on. Claire, briefly, and I must just come back to Helen.
I don't think it can be divisive to note the fact...
Now comes the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
In the last decade, this government has introduced 5 plans to tackle illegal immigration, 5 utter failures. The problem just gets worse with every new gimmick. The Home Secretary says the public are sick of tough talk and inadequate action. Does he agree with her assessment of this government's record?
Well, Mr. Speaker, what the honourable gentleman fails to recognise that there is a global migration problem. We are not alone in facing these challenges, and it is precisely because that across Europe, the numbers escalating to the extent they are, we have brought forward new plans, because we are determined, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that this remains a compassionate and generous country, that is done fairly and legally. That's why we will break the criminal gangs, Mr. Speaker. We've announced new agreements with Albania and France, tougher immigration enforcement, and now new legislation that makes it clear that if you come here illegally, you will be detained and swiftly removed. But, Mr. Speaker, what we haven't heard is the honourable gentleman's plan. We know what it is. It's open-door immigration and unlimited asylum. Whilst he may be on the side of the people smugglers, we're on the side of the British people.
Mr. Speaker, if he was serious about stopping the boats, he'd actually steal our plan on stopping the boats, smash the gangs, sort out the returns, and clean up the utter mess. Mr. Speaker.
I'm going to hear this, and nobody's going to... I wouldn't if I were you. But I think we've heard enough. I want to hear the questions and the answers, and it won't be interrupted. Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, nobody on this side of the House wants open borders. On that side, they've lost control of the borders. Now, he's promised the country that this bill will stop all small boat crossings. No ifs, no buts. Sounds like more talk. So in the interest of adequate action, when will he achieve that?
Well, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we'll be implementing this plan as soon as we can pass it through Parliament. So I look forward to the honourable gentleman's support. But the reality is, Mr. Speaker, on this issue, the honourable gentleman has been on the wrong side of this.
Prime Minister, Mr. Stafford, if you don't want to hear him, you can go and have a good cup of tea, nice and strong, I suspect. But I will hear him, Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman has been on the wrong side of this issue his entire career. He described all immigration law as racist. He said it was a mistake to control immigration. And he has never, ever voted for tougher asylum laws. It is clear, Mr. Speaker, while he's in hock to the open border activists, we're on the side of the British people.
Mr. Speaker, when I was in charge of prosecutions, I extradited countless rapists, and the conviction rate for people smuggling was twice what it is today. I voted against his legislation last time because I said it wouldn't work. Since it became law, the numbers have gone up. He's proved me right. He should be apologising, not gloating. The Prime Minister says they will detain people who aren't eligible to claim asylum here and then return them. Well, they already tried that under the last legislation. Last year, 18,000 people were deemed ineligible to apply for asylum. That's the easy bit, the talk. But as for the action, Prime Minister, how many of them have actually been returned? Mr.
Speaker, As a result of the plans we brought forward, we have almost doubled the number of people returned this year. But he talked about laws. He talked about.
I think the front bench needs to be a little quieter, because I want to hear, and I don't need you joining in. I'm going to. Our constituents want to hear the importance of Prime Minister's questions, both the questions and the answers. Show our constituents the respect they're due. Come on, Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, he asked about arrests. He asked about our laws. Actually, when I was in Dover yesterday talking to our law enforcement officials, what did they tell me? Precisely because of the law that the Conservative government passed last year, they have now been able to arrest more than double the number of people they did before. 397 in the last 6 months. But stopping the boats, Mr. Speaker, stopping the boats is not just my priority, it is the people's priority. But his position on this is clear. He wanted to, in his words, scrap the Rwanda deal. He voted against measures to deport foreign criminals, Mr. Speaker, and he even argued against deportation flights. Well, and we know why, because on this matter, he talked about his legal background. He's just another lefty lawyer standing in our way.
We'll continue. When you keep shouting, it prolongs, and some of you are trying to catch my eye. When you're disappointed, I don't want any complaints. Let's get through these questions so we might get some backbenching.
Mr. Speaker, all that nonsense because he doesn't want to answer the question. Because he knows what the answer is. The number is 21. I thought he was a man of detail. 21 people out of the 18,000. And what happens to the rest? They sit in hotels and digs for months on end at the taxpayers' expense. Last year, he promised to end the hotel farce. That's the talk. But because of his mess, there are thousands of people who can't claim asylum and can't be returned. So where does he actually think they're going to end up?
Mr. Speaker, he talks about the pressure on our asylum system. Right? We've actually got a clear plan to stop people coming here in the first place. Mr. Speaker, Labour have absolutely no plan on this issue because they simply don't want to tackle the problem. We introduced tougher sentences for people smugglers. They opposed it. We signed a deal with Rwanda. They opposed it. We are deporting foreign offenders as we speak. They oppose it.
Hold on. I'm going to say to the member from Hull, save that good voice for the rugby match. You might be able to join Mr Stafford over that strong cup of tea, Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in fact, he opposed every single step of what we've done to try and stop this problem. In fact, his only contribution to this debate, well, we know what it is. In his own words, what did he say? We will defend free movement. That's the Labour Party for you, Mr. Speaker.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, he stood there last year saying exactly the same thing. We said it wouldn't work. They passed the law. The numbers went up. Absolutely deluded. He can't say where they'll return people because they spent $140 million on Rwanda and it doesn't work. They can't say how they'll return people because this bill doesn't come with a single new return agreement. And they can't say when they'll fix the mess because it's more talk, more gimmicks, more promises to be broken. Now, a few months ago, I put to him that of the people who arrived on small boats, only 4% had been processed. He stood there and said, that's unacceptable. What's the number now?
Mr. Speaker, as a result of what we've done, there are now 6,000 fewer people in the caseload of asylum backlog. We're hiring more caseworkers. We're increasing their productivity. And again, he's mistaken when it comes to returns, Mr. Speaker, because we do have returns agreements with India, with Pakistan, with Serbia, with Nigeria, and crucially, now with Albania, where we are returning hundreds of people, Mr. Speaker. But look, our position on this is clear. If you arrive here illegally, you will not be able to claim asylum here. You will not be able to access the modern slavery system, and you will not be able to make spurious human rights claims. That is the right thing to do. But he's going on and on about process, hiding behind process, because he doesn't want to confront the substance. We are the party of fairness, and he represents the party of free movement.
I thought he was supposed to be the man of detail. He's gone to all that lengths to avoid the detail. He knows the answer to the question. Less than 1% of those who arrived by boats have been processed. He shakes his head. It's the government's own statistic. On his watch, processing of those boat cases has gone from unacceptable, in his words, to almost non-existent. And doesn't that tell you everything you need to know? After 13 years, small boat crossings higher than ever, claims unprocessed, the taxpayer paying for hotel rooms, criminal gangs running all the way laughing to the bank, and an asylum system utterly broken on his watch. This is their 5th Prime Minister, their 6th immigration plan, their 7th Home Secretary, and after all this time, all they offer is the same old gimmicks and empty promises. Now, I don't agree with the Home Secretary on very much, but when she says that the Tories are all talk and no action, she's spot on, isn't she?
Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, illegal immigration enforcement up. The amount of people processing claims up. The backlog is down. The number of returns agreements is up. Hundreds of people returned to Albania, and now new laws to detain and deter illegal migrants. It's clear what we stand for, Mr. Peacock. We're doing what's right. We are acting with compassion. We are acting with fairness, and we are acting to respect the laws and borders of our country. We are delivering what we said, and it's crystal clear listening to this, Mr. Speaker, that it's going to be the Conservatives and only the Conservatives that stop the boats.
SNP leader Stephen Flynn.
Mr. Speaker, on International Women's Day, can I ask the Prime Minister to reconfirm that under his proposed new asylum laws, a woman who is sex trafficked to the UK on a small boat by a criminal gang will not be afforded protection under our modern slavery laws?
Mr. Speaker, it's precisely because we want to target our compassion and our resources on the world's most vulnerable people that we must get a grip of this system and break.
Can I just say to the SNP, it's quite right the questions are asked, but I also want to hear the answers. Shouting from up there is not helping anybody. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, it's precisely because we want to target our resources and our compassion on the world's most vulnerable people that we need to get a grip of this system, make sure that we have control over our borders, make sure our system and resources are not overwhelmed so that we can help the people most in need. There is nothing fair, there is nothing compassionate about sustaining a system where, as we saw recently, people are dying on these crossings. That is not right, and our plans will stop that from happening.
Mr. MacDonald, I don't need to hear you chunnering all the way through. You can be joining the others for a cup of tea. Come on, Stephen Flynn.
Mr. Speaker, I'll take that as a yes from the Prime Minister that women who are the victims of sex trafficking will not be protected under our modern slavery laws. What a complete and utter disgrace, Mr. Speaker. But whilst it may shock, it shouldn't necessarily surprise, because this is the Tory government that in recent months has spoken of invasions. Just yesterday, this was the Tory government that said that 100 million people could be coming to these shores. And this is the Tory government that this morning said that number could in fact be billions. Complete and utter nonsense. So may I ask the Prime Minister, from whom are his government taking inspiration? Nigel Farage or Enoch Powell?
Mr. Speaker. And what a load of nonsense, Mr. Speaker. What a load of nonsense. No, in fact, the figure of 100 million, it doesn't come from the government. It comes from the United Nations, Mr. Speaker. And it illustrates the scale of the global migration crisis that the world is grappling with, which is why it is right that we take action, Mr. Speaker. Because if we do not, the numbers will continue to grow. They have more than quadrupled in just 2 years. It's a sign of what is to come, and our system will continue to be overwhelmed. And if that happens, we will not be able to help the people who are most in need of our support, our generosity, and our compassion. This has always been the way of this country, and once we get a grip of this system, that's who we can extend our support to, and that's why it's the right legislation.
Should Gary Lineker be shown the red card by the BBC?
Right, OK. Now, unless you've been under a rock somewhere, I don't know, you won't have missed this story. So, obviously, Gary Lineker has been tweeting about the thing we've just been talking about, and in his tweet he said, this is an immeasurably cruel policy directed at the most vulnerable people in language not dissimilar to that used by Germany in the 1930s. Rich, I'm going to come to you as the journalist on the panel. Should he be shown the red card?
No. I think, and I speak as somebody who's actually been attacked by Gary Lineker on his Twitter page, and I don't mind at all. It's called free speech. I think that if Gary Lineker was... I think if Gary Lineker clearly was a political journalist, a political presenter, interviewer, in any of the areas of the BBC that we're talking about, Newsnight, you know, what used to be Panorama, etc., then clearly he shouldn't have made those comments. It would be a dereliction of duty and deeply compromising to his programme, to himself and future interviews, and, of course, to the BBC, publicly funded by us, because we pay his wages. We pay his £1.35 million. But he's a sports presenter.
Language matters. Language is what started in Bosnia. Language is what started in Rwanda. Language is what... And that's what he was talking about. And the language that is being used first by Priti Patel and Suella and Rishi Sunak, all of them from my background, brown-skinned people from Africa, behaving this way for reasons I cannot fathom. It is important. It's the language he was talking about. And he said something else, which is very important. I'm speaking for the people who have no voice. And I totally... And let me tell you one thing. You know, for people who think this is... W.H. Auden, who was gay and one of our greatest poets, married an asylum seeker from Germany so she could stay here. And he wrote a poem. Go and read it. It's called Refugee Blues. It was written in 1939. And it says... They say, my dear, if we let them in, they'll steal our daily bread. They say, my dear, there's no space for us here, no space. 1939. Language matters. Those attitudes have come from then to now. And I face it. I face these appalling attacks because of my being a migrant, and every time, and you're doing this, we know the popularity of this government is smashed. The people actually, until this happened, their priorities, according to pollsters, the economy, the cost of living, health, and the environment. They started this, and look where we are.
Someone shouting still is over there.
Good evening. Gary Lineker has been pulled by the BBC from presenting Match of the Day. A BBC spokesman said he will step back from Match of the Day until there is an agreed and clear position on his use of social media. Ian Wright has just announced that he's pulling out of Saturday's Match of the Day in solidarity.
I think this decision is driven by an utterly craven political cowardice at the top of the BBC. And that is what has led to Gary Lineker. And this thing about, you know, stepping backwards, let's be absolutely frank about this. It's been pretty made clear to Gary Lineker, I would imagine, he's not going to be presenting Match of the Day because he's not towing the line.
So this scheme, this announcement, it is illegal, it's impractical, and it won't work. Not to say it's also inhumane, but really it's actually not about whether it's going to work or not, because as stupid as Suella Braverman does sound when she uses words like blob, workerati, or whatever nonsense she wants to spout, that's not what they're trying to do. This isn't even about the actual scheme itself. They're forecasting to the next election. They can't run on their governing record. There's sewage in the rivers. Inflation is through the roof. Living standards are beyond the floor. They can't run on individuals or personalities. They have ex-chancellors who don't pay tax. They have another ex-chancellor who knew the currency was going to run, so he told his former employers to bet against it. So what do they have left? All they have left is division, and this is all this policy is about. They are trying to sow division by casting it as us, the people in Britain, against people who want to come here. And it's really sad.
Okay.
I think that I have faith that people are not going to buy it, because unlike them, it also just fundamentally betrays that they don't think the way the Conservatives don't think the way that we do, because we think compassionately.